Savannah Winters, 34, stood on the black sand beach of Hawaii's Punalu'u, watching the sunset paint the sky in hues of orange and pink. Her phone had been silenced for 3 days, but when she finally turned it on, it exploded with notifications. Her brother's wedding had been called off, her parents were frantic, and somehow everyone was blaming her for the disaster even though she was 4,000 miles away. The family secret she never meant to expose had destroyed everything. Hey everyone. Before I dive into what might be the most dramatic chapter of my life, I'd love to know where you're watching from. Drop your location in the comments below. If you enjoy family revenge drama like mine, hit that like button and subscribe to join our storytelling community. Trust me, you'll want to stick around to see how karma delivered the most unexpected justice to my family. Now let's get into how this all started. It all began with a cream-colored envelope that arrived at my apartment on a rainy Tuesday afternoon. The elegant cursive lettering addressed to Miss Savannah Winters immediately gave away its formal nature. I tossed my keys onto the kitchen counter, shook the raindrops from my hair, and examined the envelope with growing curiosity. Inside was an invitation to my younger brother Cameron's engagement party. The invitation was beautiful embossed gold lettering on thick cardstock announcing the celebration of Cameron Winters and Olivia Jenkins' engagement. The party was to be held at our parents' estate in Connecticut, a sprawling property that had been the backdrop for all our family's milestone celebrations. I should have been excited. I should have immediately marked my calendar and started thinking about what to wear. But instead, I felt a familiar knot form in my stomach. Cameron and I had a complicated relationship, to put it mildly. Growing up, Cameron had always been the golden child. 3 years my junior, he somehow managed to eclipse me in every way that mattered to our parents. While I struggled through school with undiagnosed ADHD, Cameron sailed through with perfect grades. When I pursued a career in photography, a passion my father dismissed as a hobby, Cameron followed in Dad's footsteps and joined the family investment firm. Every choice I made seemed to disappoint my parents while Cameron could do no wrong. Despite this, I'd always tried to maintain a relationship with my brother. We'd grab coffee when our schedules aligned, exchange birthday gifts, and keep up appearances at family gatherings. But there was always a tension simmering beneath the surface, a competition I never signed up for but somehow couldn't escape. I placed the invitation on my refrigerator with a magnet and tried to push away the negative thoughts. This was Cameron's moment, and I wouldn't let our complicated past ruin it. I'd be the bigger person, show up with a smile, and give the happy couple my genuine congratulations. The next day, I called Cameron to RSVP. Hey, got your invitation yesterday. Congratulations! I'm so happy for you and Olivia, I said, injecting as much enthusiasm into my voice as I could muster. Thanks, Sav. So you're coming? Cameron's voice sounded oddly hesitant. Of course, wouldn't miss it for the world. Need me to bring anything? There was a pause on the other end of the line. Actually, about that. Mom and Dad are handling everything. They've hired caterers and decorators, the works. You know how they are. Yeah, they never do anything halfway, I laughed, trying to keep things light. Another uncomfortable pause. So, have you met Olivia's parents yet? I hear they're flying in from Chicago for the party, I continued, attempting to fill the silence. Listen, Sav, Cameron finally said, his voice taking on a serious tone that made my stomach drop. I need to be straight with you about something. What's going on, Cam? Mom and Dad are concerned about. Well, about you attending the engagement party. I felt like I'd been slapped. Concerned about me. What does that mean? Cameron sighed deeply. They're worried you might cause a scene or make things uncomfortable. You know how you and Dad always end up arguing about your life choices. That's ridiculous, I protested. I would never ruin your engagement party. This isn't about me. It's not just that, he continued. Olivia's family is very traditional, very proper. Mom and Dad want to make a good impression, and they're worried that you might not fit in. The implications of what he was saying hit me like a ton of bricks. My family was embarrassed by me, by my career choice, by my casual style, by my refusal to conform to their upper-class Connecticut standards. Are you serious right now? You're uninviting me to your engagement party because I'm not proper enough. My voice was rising despite my best efforts to stay calm. I'm not uninviting you, Cameron said quickly. I'm just preparing you. Maybe if you could dress more conservatively, not talk about your travels or your unconventional clients. My unconventional clients are world-renowned artists and musicians, I snapped. I'm a successful photographer, Cameron. Just because I don't wear pearls and discuss the stock market doesn't mean I'm some kind of embarrassment. That's not what I meant. Then what did you mean? I demanded. There was a long pause before Cameron spoke again, his voice cold and distant. Look, Savannah, maybe it would be better if you didn't come. I don't want any drama at my engagement party, and frankly, based on how you're reacting right now, I don't think you deserve to be there. His words felt like a physical blow. I don't deserve to be there, I repeated, barely able to get the words out. That's not exactly what I— No, I heard you clearly, I interrupted. Message received, Cameron. Congratulations on your engagement. I hope you and your proper family have a wonderful time. I hung up before he could respond, my hands shaking with anger and hurt. For a moment, I just sat there trying to process what had just happened. My own brother had essentially told me I wasn't good enough to attend his engagement party, that I didn't deserve to be there. The rejection stung more than I wanted to admit. Despite our differences, I'd always believed that deep down Cameron respected me even if our parents didn't. Now I knew the truth. He was just as judgmental as they were. As the hurt began to crystallize into anger, I made a decision. If I wasn't welcome at the engagement party, I would do something for myself instead. Something that would remind me of my worth, even if my family couldn't see it. I opened my laptop and started searching for flights. My finger hovered over the purchase button for a moment before I decisively clicked. If my family didn't want me at their perfect party, I would be 4,000 miles away on a Hawaiian beach, reminding myself that I had built a beautiful life despite their disapproval. Little did I know that this impulsive decision would set in motion a chain of events that would change my family forever. The week leading up to my departure for Hawaii and Cameron's engagement party was a blur of emotions. I vacillated between hurt, anger, and a perverse desire to prove my worth to my family. I threw myself into work, scheduling extra photo shoots and editing sessions to distract myself from the rejection that still stung like an open wound. I didn't tell my parents about Cameron's phone call. Some part of me hoped that they would reach out, that they would insist I attend the party despite Cameron's misgivings. But my phone remained silent, confirming what I already knew. They agreed with him. 3 days before my flight to Hawaii, I received a text from my childhood friend Eliza, who had remained close with my family even as I drifted away. Hey Sav, just checking if you're coming to Cam's engagement party. Haven't seen your name on the RSVP list. I hesitated before responding. Not going. Family drama. Long story. Her reply came quickly. What? That's crazy. Everyone's asking about you. Your mom told people you had a prior commitment. A bitter laugh escaped my lips. Of course, my mother would rather lie than admit they'd pushed me away. Heaven forbid anyone think there was discord in the perfect Winters family. Well, I do have a prior commitment now. I'll be in Hawaii, I texted back. Hawaii, alone. Are you okay, Sav? I'm fine. Just needed to get away. Listen, can we talk? I need someone who understands the Winters family dysfunction. We agreed to meet for coffee that afternoon. Eliza had been my neighbor growing up, and she had witnessed firsthand the dynamic in our household. She was one of the few people who knew the real story behind our seemingly perfect family facade. The coffee shop was busy when I arrived, but I spotted Eliza in the corner, her red hair as vibrant as ever. She wrapped me in a warm hug before we sat down. "Spill," she said once we had our drinks. "What happened with Cameron?" I recounted the phone call, trying to keep my voice steady as I repeated his words. "I don't think you deserve to be there." Eliza's expression darkened. "That doesn't sound like Cam. He adores you, Sav. Does he? Because it seems like he's turned into a carbon copy of our parents, judgmental, status, obsessed, and ashamed of me." Eliza took a sip of her latte, considering her words carefully. "Look, I don't want to take sides here, but is it possible there's more to this story? Maybe there's something else going on with your family right now," I shrugged. "Like what? What could possibly justify uninviting your sister from your engagement party? I don't know," Eliza admitted. "But the Camerons I know wouldn't do this without a reason." As we continued talking, Eliza mentioned that she'd been to my parents' house recently for a dinner party and had noticed something odd. "Your dad seemed really on edge. He kept taking calls in his office, and your mom was clearly stressed about something. I overheard her telling your aunt that there might be changes coming to the family business." This caught my attention. My father's investment firm was his pride and joy, the legacy he intended to pass down to Cameron. If something was threatening, that it would explain the heightened tension. "What kind of changes?" I asked. "I don't know the details, but it didn't sound good." "There was talk about potential investors backing out something about ethical concerns." A memory surfaced, something I'd pushed away years ago. During my senior year of college, I'd interned at my father's firm for a summer. It had been an attempt to appease him, to show that I could follow the path he'd laid out for me. Instead, I'd discovered something that had driven an even deeper wedge between us. "Eliza," I said slowly, "I think I might know what this is about." I lowered my voice, even though no one in the coffee shop knew us. "When I interned at Dad's firm, I accidentally stumbled upon some files I wasn't supposed to see. Dad was managing investments for a client who was cutting corners in environmental regulations, dumping toxic waste into local water supplies to save money. Dad knew about it and helped cover it up because the client was too valuable to lose." Eliza's eyes widened. "Are you serious? That's illegal, Sav." "I know. I confronted him about it, and he was furious, not about the ethical violation, but that I had accessed confidential client information. He made me sign an NDA and told me I would never understand how business works. That was when I decided I couldn't join the family firm, no matter how much he wanted me to." "And Cameron, does he know about this?" I shook my head. "I don't think so. He was still in college when it happened, and Dad made it clear I was never to speak of it again. But Eliza, if this is coming back to haunt Dad now, if investors are asking questions, it might explain why they're being extra careful about appearances," Eliza finished my thought, "including who attends family functions." The realization hit me like a wave. My exclusion from the engagement party wasn't just about my lifestyle choices or appearance. It was about control. My father was afraid I might say something, reveal something, especially if I had a few drinks and got talking to the wrong person. "I need to warn Cameron," I said, reaching for my phone. Eliza placed her hand over mine. "Wait, Sav. Think about this. If your dad is hiding something serious, getting involved could make things worse for everyone. Maybe going to Hawaii isn't such a bad idea after all. Give yourself some space to figure out what to do." I knew she had a point, but the thought of Cameron unwittingly being drawn deeper into whatever my father was involved in made me sick. He might be judgmental and sometimes callous, but he was still my brother. He deserved to know what kind of business he was committing his life to. After parting ways with Eliza, I spent the evening pacing my apartment, torn about what to do. Should I call Cameron despite his rejection? Should I go to my parents directly? Or should I just get on that plane to Hawaii and let them deal with their own mess? In the end, I decided to write everything down, what I'd seen during my internship, my conversation with Dad, my suspicions about why I'd been excluded from the engagement party. I saved it as a draft email to Cameron but didn't send it. I would take Eliza's advice and go to Hawaii, give myself time to think clearly away from the family drama. What I didn't realize then was that secrets have a way of revealing themselves, whether we intend them to or not. And the secret I had kept from my father was about to explode in ways none of us could have anticipated. The morning of my flight to Hawaii, I woke up with a strange mix of emotions swirling in my chest. Part of me felt guilty for running away from the family drama, for not confronting Cameron and my parents directly. Another part felt liberated, excited even at the prospect of a week alone on a tropical island far from the suffocating expectations of the Winters family. I had packed light, mostly swimsuits, sundresses, and my camera equipment. Photography had always been my escape, my way of seeing beauty in the world when my own life felt chaotic. I planned to capture the stunning landscapes of Hawaii, maybe even build a new portfolio series that could attract more clients. As I was about to call a rideshare to the airport, my phone rang. It was my mother. For a moment, I considered ignoring it, but curiosity got the better of me. "Hello," I answered, keeping my tone neutral. "Savannah," my mother's clipped voice came through the speaker. "I just wanted to confirm that you received Cameron's invitation and that you understand the importance of making a good impression on the Jenkins family." No, how are you? No acknowledgement of the fact that her son had essentially uninvited me from his engagement party. Just straight to her concerns about appearances. "Actually, Mom, Cameron made it clear that I'm not welcome at the engagement party," I said, struggling to keep my voice steady. Something about not deserving to be there. There was a pause on the other end of the line. "That's not exactly what he said, Savannah. We merely expressed concerns about your tendency to be provocative in family gatherings." "Provocative," I echoed, disbelief coloring my voice. "Is that what you call it when I talk about my career or express opinions that differ from yours and Dad's?" "This isn't about your career," my mother said dismissively. "This is about your attitude. The Jenkins family is very important to your father's business, and we can't afford any disruptions." And there it was. The real reason behind my exclusion had nothing to do with me and everything to do with my father's business connections. The Jenkins family must be potential investors or clients, people who could help salvage whatever trouble the firm was in. "I understand perfectly, Mom," I said, a new coldness in my voice. "Don't worry, I won't be there to embarrass you. I have other plans." "What other plans?" she demanded. "The engagement party has been on the calendar for months. I'm going to Hawaii," I said simply. Since my presence isn't required or desired at the family function, I decided to take some time for myself. "Hawaii." My mother's voice rose in pitch. "You can't be serious, Savannah. This is your brother's engagement party. How will it look if you're not there? People will talk." "I thought the point was for me not to be there," I countered. "You can't have it both ways, Mom. Either you want me at the party willing to accept me as I am, or you don't want me there at all." "This is exactly the kind of dramatic behavior we were concerned about," my mother said with a sigh. "Fine, go to Hawaii if that's what you want. Just don't expect your father and me to explain your absence to the extended family." "Tell them whatever you want," I replied. "I'm sure you'll come up with a story that preserves the perfect Winters family image." I ended the call before she could respond, my hands shaking slightly. It was always like this with my mother, her words designed to make me feel guilty, to make me fall in line with their expectations. But not this time. This time I was choosing myself. I grabbed my bags and headed to the airport, determined to leave the family drama behind me at least for a week. The flight to Hawaii was long, but I welcomed the forced disconnection. I turned off my phone, ordered a glass of wine, and lost myself in a novel I'd been meaning to read for months. By the time we landed in Honolulu, I felt a weight lifting from my shoulders. I had rented a small cottage on the Big Island away from the tourist crowds of Waikiki. It was a charming place with a lanai overlooking the ocean, surrounded by lush tropical foliage. As I stepped onto the property, the scent of plumeria and the sound of waves washing against the shore immediately began to soothe my frayed nerves. The cottage owner, a friendly local woman named Kailani, met me with a warm smile and a lei of fresh flowers. Aloha, welcome to the island, she said, placing the fragrant garland around my neck. You look like you need this vacation. I laughed, surprised by her perception. Is it that obvious? The tension in your shoulders gave it away, she said kindly. Don't worry, the island has a way of healing what needs to be healed. As Kailani showed me around the cottage, pointing out the best spots for sunrise viewing and recommending local eateries, I found myself relaxing for the first time in weeks. This was exactly what I needed. A place where no one knew the Winters family, where I could just be Savannah the photographer, not Savannah the disappointing daughter. That first evening, I sat on the lanai with a glass of local pineapple wine, watching the sun dip below the horizon in a spectacular display of orange and pink. I had turned my phone back on briefly to let Eliza know I'd arrived safely, but otherwise I was completely disconnected from my life back home. No emails, no social media, no family drama. The next few days passed in a blur of island exploration. I hiked to hidden waterfalls, photographed the active Kilauea volcano from a safe distance, and spent hours on black sand beaches, capturing the contrast of dark sand against the vibrant blue ocean. I chatted with locals, ate at roadside stands serving the best poke I'd ever tasted, and even tried surfing with the patient guidance of an instructor who found my repeated wipeouts more amusing than I did. Every night I fell into bed exhausted, but content, my mind too full of new experiences to dwell on the family I'd left behind. It was as if I was becoming a different person on this island, more confident, more at peace with my choices. On my third day, I visited Punalu'u Beach, famous for its black sand and the sea turtles that often came ashore to bask in the sun. I spent hours photographing these magnificent creatures, careful to maintain a respectful distance as they lounged on the dark volcanic sand. It was there, sitting on that black sand beach with my camera in hand, that I had a moment of clarity. The problem wasn't that I didn't fit into my family's world, it was that I had been trying to for far too long. I had been seeking their approval, their acceptance, when I should have been fully embracing the life I had chosen for myself. I thought about the secret I had kept about my father's business dealings, how I had remained silent even when I knew what he was doing was wrong. I had done it to keep the peace, to maintain some semblance of a relationship with my family. But at what cost? As the sun began to set, painting the sky in breathtaking hues of orange and pink, I made a decision. When I returned home, I would stop trying to fit into the mold my parents had created. I would live authentically, speak truthfully, and if that meant further estrangement from my family, so be it. I was done compromising myself for people who couldn't accept me as I was. What I didn't know then, as I watched that Hawaiian sunset with newfound resolve, was that events back home were unfolding in ways that would make my decision moot. The secret I had kept for years was about to surface, and the perfect facade of the Winters family was about to crumble in spectacular fashion. I woke up on the fourth day of my Hawaiian escape to the sound of gentle rain pattering against the roof of my cottage. The soft rhythmic noise was soothing, and I decided it was the perfect day to relax indoors, organize my photos, and perhaps read a book on the covered lanai. After a leisurely breakfast of fresh tropical fruits and coffee, I settled in with my laptop to sort through the hundreds of photos I'd taken over the past few days. As I worked, I felt a sense of pride in what I'd captured. The raw beauty of Hawaii, from its volcanic landscapes to its vibrant marine life. These weren't just vacation snapshots. They were art, the kind that reminded me why I had chosen this path despite my family's disapproval. Around midday, the rain cleared, revealing a sky washed clean and brilliantly blue. I decided to venture out to a nearby beach that Kailani had recommended for its secluded coves and excellent snorkeling. My phone had remained off since I arrived, and I had no intention of turning it on. Whatever was happening back home could wait until my return. The beach was even more beautiful than Kailani had described, a hidden gem away from tourist crowds. I spent hours snorkeling among colorful fish and coral formations, my underwater camera capturing the vibrant marine ecosystem. By late afternoon, exhausted but content, I stretched out on the warm sand, letting the sun dry my skin as I dozed off to the rhythm of the waves. When I returned to my cottage at sunset, however, a strange feeling of unease settled over me. It was as if some part of me sensed that something was wrong, that the bubble of peace I had created for myself was about to burst. I tried to shake it off, attributing the feeling to the inevitable end of my vacation drawing near. In just 3 days, I would be heading back to reality, back to the fallout from my absence at Cameron's engagement party. That night, I couldn't sleep. I tossed and turned, haunted by fragments of dreams about my family, about secrets bubbling to the surface. By dawn, I knew what I needed to do. I would turn on my phone, check my messages, and face whatever was waiting for me. The not knowing had become worse than whatever reality might be. With a deep breath, I powered on my phone. Almost immediately, it began to buzz and chime incessantly as notifications flooded in. Missed calls, voicemails, text messages, emails, all seemingly urgent, all demanding my attention. 27 missed calls, 15 voicemails, 43 text messages. My heart raced as I scrolled through the notifications. Calls from Cameron, my parents, Eliza, even relatives I rarely spoke to. What could possibly have happened to warrant this level of urgency? I started with the text messages, figuring they would give me the quickest overview of the situation. The first was from Cameron, sent the day of his engagement party. "Where are you? Everyone's asking about you. Mom and Dad are furious." Then another sent hours later. "Savannah, please call me. Something's happened. I need to talk to you." And another? "This isn't about the engagement party anymore. Please, Sav, this is serious." My stomach clenched with anxiety as I continued scrolling. Messages from Eliza were similarly alarming. "Sav, call me as soon as possible. Your dad's company is all over the news. Are you checking your phone at all? Things are exploding here. The engagement party is off. Cameron is looking for you. Please call someone." With shaking hands, I opened my email app and found my inbox flooded with news alerts and messages. One subject line caught my eye immediately: Winters Investment Group CEO accused of environmental fraud. I clicked on the news article, my breath caught in my throat. The story outlined exactly what I had discovered years ago during my internship, that my father's firm had been helping a major client cover up illegal toxic dumping. But now, it wasn't just that one client. The investigation had uncovered a pattern of similar dealings with multiple companies spanning over a decade. The article mentioned whistleblower evidence that had triggered the investigation, including internal documents that detailed my father's knowledge and complicity in the environmental violations. The Jenkins family, Olivia's family, was mentioned specifically as one of the clients involved in the scandal. As I read through the article, a sickening realization dawned on me. The timing of this news breaking, coinciding exactly with Cameron's engagement party, couldn't be a coincidence. And then I remembered the draft email I had written to Cameron detailing what I knew about our father's business practices. The email I had never sent. Except, what if I had? What if somehow that email had been sent accidentally? Or what if someone had accessed my computer while I was away? With growing horror, I checked my sent items folder. There it was, the email to Cameron marked as sent the day after I left for Hawaii. But I hadn't sent it. I was certain I had saved it as a draft. I quickly called Eliza, needing to understand what was happening. She answered on the first ring. Savannah, thank God. Where have you been, Hawaii, like I told you? My phone's been off. Eliza, what's going on? I'm seeing news about Dad's company, and there's an email to Cameron that I didn't send Sav. It's a complete disaster, Eliza interrupted. The day of the engagement party, Cameron received your email with all those details about your dad's environmental cover-ups. He confronted your father about it in front of everyone, including the Jenkins family. My blood ran cold. What? No, that's not possible. I never sent that email, Eliza. I wrote it, but I saved it as a draft. Well, someone sent it because Cameron got it. And it gets worse. Apparently, the Jenkins family has been under investigation for environmental violations for months. Your email contained exactly the evidence the authorities needed to connect your father's firm to their illegal activities. Oh my God, I whispered, sinking onto the edge of the bed. And the engagement party canceled, obviously. Olivia broke off the engagement when she found out her family and yours had been working together to cover up the toxic dumping. It turns out she's an environmental lawyer, Sav. She had no idea her family's business was involved in this. The irony was almost too much to bear. My brother had fallen in love with a woman whose values aligned more with mine than with our family's, and now their relationship was collateral damage in our father's scandal. And Cameron, how is he? Eliza hesitated. He's struggling. He believed in your dad in the family business. Finding out it was built on lies and illegal activities has shaken him to the core. And he thinks you orchestrated this whole thing as revenge for excluding you from the engagement party. That's ridiculous, I exclaimed. I would never do that to him. I didn't even send that email, I believe you, Eliza said gently. But you have to understand how it looks from his perspective. You get uninvited from his engagement party. You go to Hawaii, and suddenly an email from you exposes a scandal that ruins his engagement and potentially the family business. The timing is suspicious, Sav. I felt sick. My brother thought I had deliberately sabotaged his life out of spite. My parents probably thought the same. But who had sent that email if not me? As if reading my thoughts, Eliza continued, There's something else you should know. Your mom called me yesterday asking if I knew where you were. She was. Well, she wasn't herself, Sav. She mentioned something about accessing your accounts to understand what you were planning. I think she might have been the one who sent the email. The pieces suddenly fell into place. My mother, always so concerned with appearances, must have been monitoring my communications, worried I would say something to damage the family reputation. When she saw the draft email to Cameron, she must have sent it herself, thinking it would drive a permanent wedge between Cameron and me. She couldn't have anticipated that it would arrive on the day of the engagement party, or that Cameron would confront our father publicly. In trying to control the narrative, my mother had unwittingly exposed the very secret she was trying to protect. Sav, are you still there? Eliza's voice brought me back to the present. Yeah, I'm here, I replied, my mind racing. I need to talk to Cameron to explain what happened. Good luck with that. He's not taking calls from anyone in the family right now. Your parents are facing potential criminal charges, the family company is under investigation, and the scandal is all over the national news. It's a complete meltdown, Sav. After ending the call with Eliza, I sat on the edge of the bed, staring at the phone in my hand. The peaceful escape I had found in Hawaii now seemed like a distant dream. Reality had come crashing back in the most dramatic way possible. I needed to go home to face this situation head-on. But first, I needed a moment to process everything I had learned. Hey, everyone. I know we're at a turning point in the story, and I can see you're all on the edge of your seats. Before we dive into what happened when I returned home to face my family, I'd love to hear your thoughts on this situation. Would you have gone back immediately or stayed in Hawaii a bit longer? Have you ever experienced a family secret exploding like this? Drop a comment below with your thoughts, and while you're there, hit that like button if you're enjoying this journey through my family's most dramatic chapter. Don't forget to subscribe so you don't miss the conclusion. Trust me, the karma that unfolds next is something you won't want to miss. Now, let's get back to what happened when I finally confronted my family. The flight back to Connecticut felt interminable. For 7 hours, I sat rigidly in my seat, unable to sleep, my mind churning with scenarios of what awaited me. I had cut my Hawaiian escape short, booking the first available flight home after the bombshell revelations about my family. My paradise retreat had transformed into an anxious limbo caught between the peace I'd found and the chaos I was flying toward. Throughout the flight, I kept my phone on airplane mode, unwilling to face more messages or news alerts. I needed these final hours to prepare myself mentally for the confrontation that was inevitable. The family I was returning to was not the same one I had left behind. Everything had changed irrevocably and publicly. When we finally landed, I turned my phone on to find even more missed calls and messages. Most notably a text from Cameron, "I know you're coming home. Meet me at Riverside Park at 3 p.m. We need to talk." At least he was willing to see me. That was something. I checked the time, 1:30 p.m. Just enough time to drop my bags at my apartment and make it to the park. My apartment felt strangely unfamiliar after just a few days away, as if it belonged to a different Savannah, one who hadn't yet witnessed the implosion of her family. I quickly showered away the stale air of travel, changed into fresh clothes, and headed to Riverside Park. The park was relatively quiet for an afternoon, just a few joggers and people walking their dogs. I spotted Cameron sitting on a bench overlooking the river, his posture slumped, nothing like his usual confident stance. He looked like he had aged years in the days since I'd last seen him. He didn't look up as I approached, but I knew he sensed my presence. "I didn't send that email," I said, without preamble, sitting down beside him. Cameron let out a humorless laugh. "That's what you lead with. Not how are you holding up after your engagement ended, and our family was exposed as criminals." "I'm sorry about Olivia," I said softly. "I truly am, Cam. I know how much you loved her." He finally turned to look at me, his eyes red-rimmed from lack of sleep or tears or both. "Did you? Because from where I'm standing, it seems like you orchestrated this whole thing to punish me for what I said about the engagement party." "That's not true," I insisted. "I wrote that email, yes, but I saved it as a draft. I never sent it. I think Mom might have accessed my account and sent it." Cameron shook his head in disbelief. "So now you're blaming Mom. That's convenient." "It's the truth," I said firmly. "Eliza told me Mom was trying to understand what I was planning. Mom's always been obsessed with controlling the family image. She probably saw the draft and thought sending it would discredit me somehow. She couldn't have known it would arrive the day of the party or that you would confront Dad publicly." Cameron stared at the river, processing my words. "Even if that's true," he said finally, "it doesn't change the fact that you knew. You knew for years what Dad was doing, and you never told me. The accusation stung, but I couldn't deny it." "You're right," I admitted. "I should have told you sooner. But Dad made me sign an NDA, and honestly, I didn't think you would believe me. You've always seen him as infallible." "I would have believed you," Cameron said, his voice breaking slightly. "You're my sister, Sav. Despite everything, I would have listened." We sat in silence for a moment, the weight of years of miscommunication hanging between us. "So what happens now?" I finally asked. With Mom and Dad with the company, Cameron ran a hand through his hair, a gesture so familiar it made my heart ache for simpler times. "Dad's facing criminal charges. The company's under federal investigation. Most of the clients have jumped ship, including the Jenkins family. It's over, Sav. Everything Dad built, everything he wanted to pass down to me, it's gone. And Olivia. His expression darkened. She wants nothing to do with me. She thinks I must have known about the environmental violations, that I was complicit. Her family's facing their own legal battles. It's a mess all around. I reached out hesitantly and placed my hand on his arm. To my surprise, he didn't pull away. I'm sorry, Cam. Not just for Olivia, but for everything. I never wanted this to happen. He looked at me, then really looked at me as if seeing me clearly for the first time in years. I know you didn't, he said softly. And I'm sorry, too, for what I said about you not deserving to be at the engagement party. That was cruel and untrue. It was a small olive branch, but in that moment it meant everything. Have you spoken to Mom and Dad? I asked. Cameron shook his head. Not since the party. Dad's lawyer has advised him not to contact anyone, and Mom's holed up at the house, refusing to see anyone. The press has been camped outside the estate. It's a circus. I should go see her, I said, surprising myself with the words. Why? After everything they've done. Why would you want to see her? It was a fair question. Why did I feel the need to face my mother, who had likely betrayed my privacy and sent an email in my name? But somehow I knew I needed closure, needed to understand her actions. Because she's still our mother, I replied simply. And because I need to know why she did it. Cameron nodded slowly. If you're going, I'm going with you. We face this together from now on. The drive to our parents' estate was tense, but oddly comforting with Cameron beside me. As he had warned, news vans lined the street leading to the house reporters, eager for a glimpse of the disgraced investment mogul or his family. We managed to slip in through a side entrance using the key I still had from my childhood. The house was eerily quiet, the usual bustle of staff noticeably absent. We found our mother in the sunroom, staring out at the garden, a glass of untouched scotch beside her. She looked older, diminished somehow, her usual perfect appearance slightly disheveled. She didn't seem surprised to see us. I wondered when you would come, she said, her voice hollow. You sent the email, didn't you? I asked directly. No preamble needed. You accessed my account and sent my draft email to Cameron. My mother didn't deny it. I was trying to protect this family, she said, her voice barely above a whisper. I found the draft when I was checking your computer. I thought if I sent it to Cameron privately, he would keep it quiet and it would drive a wedge between you two. I never imagined he would confront your father publicly, especially not at the engagement party. So you admit it, Cameron said, his voice tight with anger. You deliberately tried to turn us against each other. Our mother looked at him, her eyes filled with tears. I was trying to save what your father had built. I knew if the truth came out, it would destroy everything. I thought I could contain it, control the narrative. By betraying your own daughter, I asked the hurt evident in my voice. By making it look like I was taking revenge on my brother, I didn't think it through, she admitted. I was desperate. Your father told me investigators were closing in, that it was only a matter of time before everything came to light. I panicked. The admission was startling. My mother, who had always been the epitome of calm control, had acted out of fear and desperation. It made her suddenly strikingly human. Where is Dad? Cameron asked, looking around as if expecting our father to materialize. Our mother's expression hardened. Gone. He left yesterday with his passport and what cash he could gather. His lawyer thinks he's trying to flee to a country without an extradition treaty. The news hit us like a physical blow. Our father had abandoned ship, leaving his family to weather the storm alone. He left you behind, I asked incredulously. He left all of us behind, my mother replied, a bitter edge to her voice. 35 years of marriage and he didn't even say goodbye. Just a note saying he was sorry and that someday we would understand he did what he had to do. In that moment, something shifted between the three of us. Despite everything, we were united in our abandonment, in the betrayal by the patriarch who had shaped our family dynamic for decades. Cameron sank into a chair, his face in his hands. I can't believe this is happening. I moved to sit beside our mother, not quite ready to comfort her, but unwilling to leave her alone in her grief. "What will you do now?" I asked, softly. She looked at me, really looked at me, perhaps for the first time in years. "I don't know," she admitted. "The accounts are frozen. The house will likely be seized once the investigation concludes. I have nothing, Savannah. Everything I built my life around is gone." There was a strange symmetry to it. My mother had lost her identity, just as she had always tried to strip me of mine. Yet I felt no satisfaction, only a profound sadness for the waste of it all. "You have us," I said simply. "If you want us." Cameron looked up, surprise etched on his face at my words. But after a moment, he nodded in agreement. "We're still family," he said. "As broken and dysfunctional as we are." Our mother's composure finally broke, tears streaming down her face. "After everything I've done, how can you even look at me?" I didn't have a good answer for that. The hurt and betrayal were still fresh, the damage she had caused significant, and yet, seeing her broken and abandoned, I couldn't bring myself to walk away. "We start over," I said finally. "Not forgetting, but moving forward. Together." As we sat in that sunroom the 3 remaining winters, I realized that the family I had always longed to be accepted by no longer existed. In its place was something new and uncertain, built on the ruins of secrets and lies, but perhaps, just perhaps, with the potential for something more authentic. It wouldn't be easy. The coming months would bring legal battles, financial hardship, and public scrutiny. Our family name, once synonymous with success and respectability, would become associated with fraud and environmental crimes. Cameron would have to rebuild his life without the career path and relationship he had counted on. Our mother would have to find an identity beyond being Mrs. Richard Winters, and I would need to navigate my complicated feelings of vindication, guilt, and responsibility for the revelations that had changed everything. But as we sat together in the fading afternoon light, I felt a glimmer of hope that from these ashes, something real and meaningful could emerge. Not the perfect family facade we had maintained for years, but a genuine connection based on honesty and acceptance. Little did I know that the biggest revelation and the most unexpected twist of karma was still to come. A month after the confrontation with my mother, life had settled into a new and strange rhythm. The initial media frenzy had died down, though our family name still appeared occasionally in news articles about corporate environmental crimes. My father remained at large, rumored to be somewhere in Southeast Asia beyond the reach of U.S. authorities. Cameron had moved into my apartment, temporarily unable to face living in the family home with our mother. He was struggling to find his footing in a world where his planned future had vanished overnight. His finance background was now tainted by association with our father's crimes, and many doors that would have once been open to him were firmly closed. Our mother had been granted permission to remain in the house until the legal proceedings concluded, but most of the staff had been let go, and she was learning to navigate daily life without the privileges she had always taken. Granted, she called us daily, her voice still carrying traces of the entitled woman she had been, but with new notes of humility and genuine effort. I had thrown myself back into my photography work, grateful for the distraction and the income it provided. With Cameron staying with me, I felt a responsibility to keep us both afloat financially. To my surprise, the scandal had actually brought some attention to my work, with several magazines reaching out for interviews about the photographer, daughter of the disgraced investment mogul. I turned them all down, unwilling to capitalize on our family's disgrace. It was during this period of adjustment that I received an unexpected email from Olivia Jenkins, Cameron's former fiancée. The subject line was simple: "We need to talk." I stared at the email for a long moment before opening it. What could Olivia possibly want to discuss with me? We had never been close, having met only a handful of times before the engagement party disaster. The email was brief and to the point. Savannah, I've discovered something that concerns both our families. It's not something I can put in an email. Can we meet tomorrow, 2 p.m. at the Bluestone Cafe on Maple Street? Come alone, please. Olivia. The cryptic nature of the message sent a chill down my spine. What more could there possibly be to discover about our families? Hadn't all the secrets been exposed already? I debated whether to tell Cameron about the meeting, but decided against it. His wounds were still too raw, and the mention of Olivia's name was enough to send him into a dark mood for hours. If there was something new to learn, I would be the buffer deciding whether Cameron needed to know. The next day, I arrived at the Bluestone Cafe 15 minutes early, choosing a table in the back corner where we could speak privately. Olivia arrived precisely on time, her appearance as polished and professional as I remembered, though there was a new tension in her shoulders, a wariness in her eyes that hadn't been there before. "Thank you for coming," she said, sliding into the seat across from me. "Your email was intriguing," I replied. "What's this about Olivia?" She glanced around the cafe before leaning forward. "I've been going through my family's documents, trying to understand the full extent of their involvement with your father's firm. My parents are cooperating with authorities, hoping for leniency." She paused, collecting herself. "I found something that, well, it changes everything." She reached into her bag and pulled out a manila folder, sliding it across the table to me. "What is this?" I asked, not opening it yet. "Evidence that your father wasn't the mastermind behind the environmental fraud scheme. He was being blackmailed." Of all the things I expected her to say, this wasn't even on the list. "Blackmailed? By whom?" "By my father," Olivia said, her voice barely above a whisper. "And by your mother." I felt like the floor had dropped out from under me. "My mother? What are you talking about? Open the folder, Savannah." With shaking hands, I opened the manila folder to find copies of emails, financial records, and what appeared to be transcripts of phone conversations. As I scanned the documents, a picture began to emerge that was even more disturbing than what we already knew. According to the evidence, Olivia had gathered my mother, and her father had been having an affair for over 15 years. They had used this relationship to orchestrate a complex scheme where my father's investment firm would help cover up the environmental violations of Jenkins Industries and other companies. My father had discovered the affair about 10 years ago, but instead of confronting them, he had been silenced with threats of public exposure. My mother was blackmailing my father. I asked incredulously, looking up from the documents. Olivia nodded grimly. "It appears so." And my father was equally complicit. They used their relationship to control both our families, to build their own power base. Your father wasn't innocent. He still went along with it, but he wasn't the architect of the fraud. He was trapped in it. The implications were staggering. My mother, who had always portrayed herself as the loyal corporate wife, had been the one pulling the strings all along. Her sending of my draft email to Cameron suddenly took on a new dimension had she been trying to ensure that my father took all the blame. "Does Cameron know about this?" Olivia asked, interrupting my thoughts. I shook my head. "No one does except you and now me. He deserves to know, Savannah. We both mistakenly blamed the wrong parents. I broke off our engagement because I thought he must have known about his father's crimes. But if the real conspirators were my father and your mother—" She didn't finish the sentence, but she didn't need to. If the truth had been known from the beginning, perhaps Cameron and Olivia's relationship could have been saved. "Why are you showing me this?" I asked. "Why not take it directly to the authorities?" Olivia sighed, running a hand through her hair in a gesture that reminded me painfully of Cameron. "My father is still my father despite everything. I wanted to understand the full picture before potentially adding more charges to what he's already facing, and—" She hesitated. I thought your family deserved to hear it from one of you, not from investigators or the press. It was an unexpected kindness given everything that had happened between our families. I felt a newfound respect for Olivia, understanding for the first time what Cameron had seen in her beyond her family connections. "What will you do now?" I asked. "I'm turning these documents over to the authorities tomorrow," she said firmly. "It's the right thing to do, regardless of the consequences. But I wanted to give you a chance to talk to your mother, to Cameron, before it becomes public knowledge." I nodded, gathering the documents back into the folder. "Thank you for this, Olivia. It can't have been easy." She gave me a sad smile. "None of this is easy. But the truth matters, even when it hurts." As we parted ways outside the cafe, Olivia hesitated, then asked softly, "How is he, Cameron, I mean?" "Struggling," I answered honestly. "But he's stronger than he knows. Tell him." She started, then shook her head. "Never mind. Just take care of him, Savannah." I watched her walk away, wondering what might have been under different circumstances. Then, clutching the folder of damning evidence, I headed home to face yet another difficult conversation with what remained of my family. Cameron was in the apartment when I arrived, working on job applications at the kitchen table. He looked up as I entered, immediately noticing my troubled expression. "What's wrong?" he asked, setting aside his laptop. I placed the folder on the table between us. "I met with Olivia today. She found something about Mom and Dad, something you need to see." His face paled at the mention of Olivia's name. "You met with Olivia? Why didn't you tell me? I didn't want to upset you unnecessarily," I explained. "I needed to understand what she had found before bringing it to you." Cameron stared at the folder, not opening it. "How bad is it?" "It changes everything we thought we knew," I said simply. "Mom wasn't just Dad's victim in all this. She was one of the architects, along with Olivia's father." I watched as Cameron read through the documents, his expression shifting from confusion to disbelief to anger. When he finally looked up, his eyes were filled with a mixture of rage and betrayal that made my heart ache for him. 15 years, he said, his voice hollow. "Mom and Jenkins have been deceiving everyone for 15 years, and Dad knew and said nothing. He was being blackmailed," I reminded him gently. "Not that it excuses his actions, but it explains them somewhat." Cameron laughed bitterly. "So Dad fled the country to escape prosecution for crimes he was forced into committing, while Mom stays behind playing the abandoned wife when she's actually been the puppet master all along. It's like a bad soap opera, Sav. Except it's our life." I couldn't argue with that assessment. Our family drama had indeed reached soap opera proportions. "What do we do now?" I asked, echoing the question I had posed to our mother in the sunroom a month ago. Cameron was silent for a long moment, staring at the evidence spread out before him. Then, with a determined set to his jaw, he began gathering the documents. "We go see Mom," he said firmly. "Together. And this time we get the full truth." The drive to the family estate was even more tense than our previous visit. This time we were armed with evidence that would shatter any remaining illusions about our mother and the family dynamics that had shaped our lives. We found her in the garden, pruning roses with the careful precision that characterized everything she did. It was jarring to see her performing manual labor, her manicured hands now covered in gardening gloves, her designer clothes replaced by practical pants and a simple blouse. She looked up as we approached, a genuine smile, briefly lighting her face before she registered our expressions. The smile faded, replaced by the guarded look we knew too well. "What's happened?" she asked, removing her gloves. Cameron held up the folder. "We know about you and Alexander Jenkins' mom. We know everything." The blood drained from our mother's face so quickly I feared she might faint. She reached for the nearby bench, lowering herself onto it with uncharacteristic clumsiness. "How did you?" she began, then stopped herself. "It doesn't matter. What do you think you know? We know you've been having an affair with him for 15 years, I said, keeping my voice steady despite the anger bubbling beneath. We know you and Jenkins orchestrated the environmental fraud scheme together. We know you blackmailed Dad to keep him complicit and silent. Our mother didn't deny any of it. She sat very still, her hands folded in her lap, her gaze fixed on a point beyond us. You let Dad take the fall, Cameron continued, his voice rising with emotion. You sent Sav's email knowing it would expose him. You've been manipulating all of us for years. I never meant for it to go this far. Our mother finally said, her voice barely audible. It started as a simple affair. Alexander and I, we connected in a way Richard and I never did. But then Alexander saw an opportunity to use Richard's firm to help cover up some regulatory issues his company was having. It was supposed to be a one-time thing, but it wasn't, I prompted when she fell silent. No, she admitted. It worked so well that we expanded the operation to include other companies. Richard discovered us together about 10 years ago. He was going to expose everything, ruin both our families. We convinced him that silence was better for everyone, especially for you two. You mean better for you, Cameron spat. Don't pretend you were protecting us. Our mother finally looked at us directly, her eyes filled with tears. Is that what you think? That I care nothing for you? Everything I've done, everything has been to secure your futures. The money, the connections, the social standing, it was all for you. We never asked for any of that, I said quietly. We just wanted parents who accepted us for who we were, who loved us unconditionally. I do love you, she insisted. Both of you. Imperfectly, selfishly perhaps, but I do. If that's true, Cameron said, his voice cold, then you'll do the right thing now. These documents are being turned over to the authorities tomorrow. You can either run like Dad did, or you can stay and face the consequences of your actions. Our mother looked stricken. You would turn me in, your own mother. We're not turning you in, I clarified. Olivia Jenkins is submitting the evidence she found. We're just giving you advance notice, a courtesy you never extended to Dad. Olivia, our mother, repeated, confused. Alexander's daughter gave you these. Cameron nodded. She discovered her father's role in all this and chose the truth over family loyalty, something you might consider. Our mother's shoulders slumped in defeat. What happens now? She asked, echoing the question that had become a refrain in our family conversations. That depends on you, I said. You can try to run, or you can stay and try to make amends. If not to the world at large, then at least to us. To Cameron, whose engagement you destroyed. To me, whose privacy you violated. To Dad, who you betrayed in every possible way. If I stay, she said slowly, I'll likely go to prison. Yes, Cameron agreed, without sympathy. You probably will. She nodded, as if accepting her fate. I'll stay, she said, finally. I'm tired of running, tired of the lies. And perhaps it's time I faced the consequences of my choices. It wasn't the dramatic confession I had imagined, no tearful breakdown or impassioned justification. Just a quiet acceptance that the game was over, that the carefully constructed facade of our family had finally irreversibly crumbled. As Cameron and I drove away from the estate, leaving our mother to her preparations for the storm that was about to break over her head, I felt a strange sense of peace settling over me. The truth, all of it, was finally coming to light. The secrets that had poisoned our family for years were being exposed, painful as that process might be. Do you think Dad knew we were coming today? Cameron asked suddenly. Is that why he ran? I considered the question. No, I said finally. I think he ran because he's been running for years from the truth, from his conscience, from the consequences of his choices, even if they were made under duress. Cameron nodded, accepting my assessment. What about you, Sav? What will you do now? I looked out at the passing landscape, thinking of the black sand beaches of Hawaii, the peace I had found there. I think I might travel for a while, I said. Take photographs, see the world, create something beautiful out of all this ugliness. Can I come with you? He asked, surprising me. Not forever, just I need to get away to figure out who I am outside of all this. I reached over and squeezed his hand, feeling a genuine connection with my brother, perhaps for the first time in our adult lives. I'd like that, I said simply. As we drove toward an uncertain future, I realized that sometimes family bonds are forged not by blood or shared names, but by surviving the truth together, no matter how painful that truth might be. 1 year later, I stood on the deck of a small cafe in Santorini, watching the sun set over the Aegean Sea. The whitewashed buildings of the island were bathed in golden light, creating a scene so beautiful it almost hurt to look at it. I lifted my camera, capturing the moment with practiced ease, knowing this would be added to the collection that had become my most successful series to date, Truth in Light and Shadow. The past year had been a journey of healing and rediscovery, both literally and figuratively. After the final revelations about our parents and the subsequent legal proceedings, Cameron and I had embarked on what we jokingly called our family reconstruction tour. We had traveled to 12 countries, staying in each place long enough to absorb its culture and spirit before moving on to the next destination. I worked remotely, taking photography assignments in each location, while Cameron had discovered a talent for writing, documenting our travels and reflections in what was evolving into a memoir about family betrayal and rebirth. His words, paired with my images, had attracted attention from publishers, and we had signed a book deal 3 months ago. Our mother had been sentenced to 7 years in federal prison for her role in the environmental fraud scheme and the subsequent cover-up. Alexander Jenkins had received a similar sentence. The publicity surrounding the case had been intense, but mercifully brief, as public attention shifted to newer scandals. Our father remained a fugitive, though we had received a letter from him 6 months ago, postmarked from a small town in Thailand. He had expressed remorse for his actions and his flight, explaining, though not excusing, the complicated web of fear and coercion that had kept him silent for so many years. He closed the letter with a request that we might someday find it in our hearts to forgive him, though he understood if we could not. I hadn't responded to the letter yet. Some wounds were still too fresh, some betrayals too profound. But I had kept the letter tucked away in my journal, a reminder that forgiveness was a process, not a destination. As for Olivia, she and Cameron had cautiously reconnected 3 months ago, first through email, then video calls. The revelation about their parents' true roles in the scandal had removed the primary barrier between them, though they were proceeding with careful deliberation, both wary of past hurts. She was planning to join us in Greece next week, a reunion that Cameron alternately anticipated with excitement and feared with the vulnerability of someone who has been deeply wounded. The cafe owner approached my table, refilling my wine glass with a smile. "Another beautiful sunset, yes," he said in heavily accented English. "The most beautiful, yet," I agreed, returning his smile. As he moved away, my phone buzzed with a text from Cameron. Flight landed, heading to the hotel. "Meet for dinner at 8, I texted back a quick confirmation, feeling a surge of affection for my brother. Our relationship had transformed completely over the past year. The competition and resentment that had characterized our interactions for decades had given way to a genuine bond forged in the crucible of our family's implosion. We had become each other's support system, confidants and friends. I finished my wine and gathered my camera equipment, ready to head back to my own hotel to prepare for dinner. As I walked through the narrow streets of Oya, I reflected on the strange journey that had led me here. A year ago, I had stood on a black sand beach in Hawaii, my phone exploding with notifications about a family disaster I had unwittingly triggered. I had felt lost, betrayed, and alone. Now I walked confidently through a foreign land, my sense of self no longer tied to my family's approval or rejection. The truth had indeed set us free, though the process had been more painful and complex than I could have imagined. My brother's casual cruelty, "I don't think you deserve to be there," had been the first domino in a chain reaction that exposed decades of lies, betrayal, and criminal activity. But from those ashes, something new and authentic had emerged. That night, as Cameron and I shared a meal at a small taverna overlooking the caldera, he raised his glass in a toast. "To Hawaii," he said, a knowing smile playing at his lips. "To Hawaii," I echoed, clinking my glass against his. We didn't need to elaborate. We both understood that my impulsive trip to those distant beaches had been the catalyst for our liberation, the beginning of our true family story. Some might call it karma, others might call it justice, but I preferred to think of it as truth finally finding its way to the light. My brother had said I didn't deserve to be at his engagement party, a rejection that had sent me fleeing to Hawaii. But that rejection had ultimately led to the exposure of secrets that needed to be revealed, to a reckoning that had been long overdue. And now, a year later, we sat together under a canopy of stars, not as the children of Richard and Eleanor Winters, heirs to a tainted legacy, but simply as Savannah and Cameron's siblings, survivors and friends writing our own story, one truth at a time. What's your family drama story? Have you ever experienced a moment of unexpected karma or justice like I did? Drop your thoughts in the comments below and let me know if you've ever had a family secret change everything. If this story resonated with you, please hit that like button and subscribe to hear more real-life dramas like this one. Share this with someone who might need to hear that sometimes family breakdowns can lead to beautiful new beginnings. Thank you so much for listening to my journey, and remember, the truth might hurt, but living in lies hurts more. Until next time, this is Savannah Winters signing off from Santorini.